we're talking about the defense for the Detroit Lions. What could be added? The Lions will have some cap space this year. Next year is when the Lions have like $90 million in cap space. I think it's actually up to over 100 now. And I'm sure they're going to increase the cap to then. So the Lions may have like $120 million to spend in 2 years, which is absurd. Insane. Yeah. Especially with all these young players that are still going to – we're going to have another rookie class, another Brad Holmes rookie class ready to go. And I cannot wait to see what they do. But this offseason – the defense. We know it's the defense. I've been on record as saying you do not spend any draft capital on offense, period. You attack the defense. One way to attack it is with a cornerback. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, one of the best in the league. Now, it didn't have the best season until the end. I mean, you watch him early in the season. Jalen Ramsey struggled, but the Rams weren't very good on top of that. So, love Ramsey. He's a competitor. He's a trash talker. I love the energy he brings, the passion he plays with. I mean, even in a throwaway season for the Rams, I mean, he was talking trash. He was playing. He was trying his hardest. Even in the last game against Seattle, he was really playing his ass off. So I got a lot of respect for Ramsey. The problem I have with Ramsey is financially. And you just said, yes, the money's going to clear up for the Lions. They're going to have tons of money to spend. But what happens when Amon-Ra St. Brown comes up, Penei Sewell comes up? These guys start. James Houston, now that he was on the practice squad and he came back, he doesn't have a 4-year rookie deal. It's a 2-year, and then you're going to have to extend him. Jared Goff, you don't know what you're going to do with Goff. Does he get another extension? There's a lot of things that are on the line in the future. I mean, with a lot of these rookies you draft, because Brad Holmes can find talent, but the problem is when you find talent, you got to keep the talent, and you got to re-sign them. So, in my opinion, I as much as I love Ramsey and he fits a need right at corner, they're one of the worst secondaries in the NFL, and you're bringing a veteran who can show Jeff Okudah and show these guys how to be a pro and how to prepare for some of the bigger games. I mean, Ramsey now a Super Bowl champion. I just don't know if I want that cap hit. I really don't. I mean, Jalen Ramsey in 2024 or 2023, excuse me, he's going to be a $25 million cap hit. And the following season, it's $26 million, and then 22 and 25. But still, that's a ton for a guy that is good, but I just don't know if you're going to get some of the best football of Jalen Ramsey. I think that's kind of in the past in his career. I just don't know if I pay him $26 million to do it. When Brad Holmes, he's shown us he can find some guys. Maybe you can find a good corner. Maybe you can go sign a James Bradbury for a fraction of that cost. But I don't know. I'm just not in love with the contract Jalen Ramsey has. I think that's probably where I separate, especially when you have young players coming up the books that you got to extend in the near future.
Yeah, I'm not so worried about extending people because for everybody that we're going to have to extend, there's going to be like Trey Flowers contracts that fall off. So they're going to have that extra money to re-sign people. It's just perpetual. That's how the NFL is. And for a guy like Jalen Ramsey, you really got to measure, is this guy going to be the shutdown cornerback to take away half the field? If he is, that's worth $25 million to me. If he isn't, no, we're not paying that to get him here. But you look at the Lions defense this year, and I think we can say the defensive line is in good shape.
Yeah, I would say
of all three levels, that is the one place you don't necessarily have to take care of, mostly because you did it in last year's draft. You got Aiden Hutchinson, you got Houston, you got Pascal, who actually showed out in the last game a little bit with 2 sacks. And you got Buggs that you got to re-sign. That's one guy that I think is high priority to re-sign is Buggs. He did a great job in the middle. I don't mind them going out and spending a little over market price for a guy like Jalen Ramsey. Because like you said, not only is he a great player, he's that emotional leader that can come in and be a part of this team. I do have a little bit of caution for what he did when he was in Jacksonville, and it was kind of I need to take my ball and leave if I'm not getting everything that I want. I kind of shy away from those guys, but I don't shy away from talent.
No, and I think that's probably the overwhelming argument. If you're going to say, well, Jeff, Jalen Ramsey, one of the better corners in the NFL, he would help this team. I think he would take the secondary up a notch. I agree with that sentiment. But the problem is, if you're looking at numbers and you're looking at Jalen Ramsey, he's about to be 29 years old. So he's getting, if you have him, I mean, if you're paying him in, let's say, 2024, he'll be 30 years old, making almost $27 million. And we talk about Goff and how his contract compared to other quarterbacks isn't that bad. I mean, $30 million. Jalen Ramsey, at 30 years old, will be making almost just as much as Goff. Like, that's the – and again, deserves the money, deserved to get paid. But is that the Lions' problem? Now, if they can work out something to where the Rams pay a portion of that contract and you get him at a discount, maybe you can work a deal out. But with the numbers I'm seeing, it doesn't sound attractive to me. I think you can find ways to have a good secondary without going out and getting Jalen Ramsey. I mean, he's gonna take up, it's projected 11% of the cap in 2024. It's a lot of money for Jalen Ramsey, who's 30 years old. So if I'm getting that same production, maybe, but not all things are promised. Last season won't be next season, those type of numbers. So it's a tough one for me. I'll probably lean no because I have a lot of faith in Brad and him to find talent because he hasn't really addressed corner. We've seen him double dip with defensive line, double dip with different positions. He hasn't really chased a corner. All he's gotten so far is Chase Lucas.
I think they were hoping that Jeff Okudah was going to be the number 3 overall pick, and they didn't have to spend more capital on that.
But we don't know. Brad might be good at identifying corners in the draft, and I'm willing to wait for that because I do like the corners coming out of this draft, and you'll pay them a fraction of the price.
That's one thing about having a competent GM that makes you feel good about any scenario, really. Yeah. If he goes and gets Jalen Ramsey, you know that he's seeing something that the team needs and you can trust him to go get him. If he doesn't go get a Jalen Ramsey, you understand that, okay, there's a bigger plan in place. And now I think we've all established that trust where, yeah, we can be worried about losing an Amon-Ra St. Brown down the road. But you also got to understand that maybe 3 years from now, right? Right. And by that time, who else has Brad Holmes drafted? Is there the next Amon-Ra on the way up? Granted, you're not going to pull a bunch of Amon-Ras out of the 4th round. Yeah. I don't think that's going to be a typical thing, but we can trust that Brad Holmes will replace and replenish and have the talent in place.
I love this comment Rad says, WoodwardSports.com. The Detroit way. Let's get the knockoff version of an elite player.
Is that what you're calling Jalen Ramsey? The knockoff version of an elite player?
I love that sentiment. It brings me back in the day with Reggie. Bring it to old Reggie. When you signed Reggie, it's like, oh, Reggie, here we go. And then it's like, all right, you got production out of Reggie, but to his point, you're kind of getting worn down versions of essentially those elite players.
Or we can bring up Josh Smith.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man. Remember when the Pistons signed Josh Smith to like $400 million? And I think he just came off the books 2 years ago.
And I love this comment too, West. Brad found Jerry Jacobs as a UDFA. He will find somebody.
And that's true.
Yeah, he's found some guys that weren't even looked at. I mean, we'll talk about not just corners, but defensively. Bugs, Kamitsky, guys that were cut from the previous teams. Brad finds them in their perfect culture fits. I think that's probably the end, the final say with Brad. Is he a culture fit? Will this guy fit in with what we're trying to do? Does he fit with the timeline? And if all those questions are yes, I think Brad will pursue him. But if not, and the money doesn't make sense, I don't think Brad will make a decision like that. I don't see Brad, as much money, he's been trying to be conservative, and then you just go out and get Jalen Ramsey, who's making $25 million a year. Doesn't really make sense for Brad. He hasn't shown us he would do that, but maybe he could. Maybe he feels like, hey, let's be aggressive. You know, I feel us on the brink of competing for a Super Bowl. Jalen Ramsey's the final piece. I just don't think he is yet. I think there's still some work to do, and I'm going to let Brad address that in the draft. So I'm not paying for Jalen Ramsey. I'm sorry. But that's certainly an argument if you want him.
Yeah, it's just nice to have somebody in charge that you can trust, right?
That's it.
No matter what Brad Holmes does, to me, it's going to be the right move.
And whoever the player is, you got to coach and trust to be able to develop him and make sure he's going to be in the right position. So I love it. Now, Jalen Ramsey playing with AG. I think he would love AG. 2 corners, 2 great corners. That'd probably be the best situation. But
and you got to love Shepard as the coach, too,
man. Shepard over there. I mean, they got a good defensive staff. I like what they got. But
did you guys talk about that last week, about the Lions coach that was going into the elevator at Lambeau and yelled?
Was that Shep?
Nobody knows who it is. That's the thing. It's just a rumor that there was a Lions coach heading into the elevator at Lambeau and yelled, "You can't lose to that team 3 times in a row." And one of the Packers coaches was like, "Oh, that's real classy." And he's like, "It was your quarterback that said it."
Yeah,
like, I'm just quoting Aaron Rodgers here.
Right.
But we don't know which coach said it. Like, I'm thinking it's either Deuce Staley or Shepard.
Those two I feel like are the loud, like, I'm gonna talk my ish.
Yes.
You're gonna deal with it. Yeah.
And I would assume Shepard, though, because it's a defensive thing, right?
For sure.
Like, they take pride in shutting down Aaron Rodgers.
Definitely. Either way, I mean, those guys, coaches are sometimes just as petty as players, especially coaches that were players.
Yes.
Like, there's a different element with that. I mean, Shepard and AG and Deuce, all former players. They got that dog in them.